What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Yo, what is going on? Welcome back. It is best ball week still here at Fantasy Points. Welcome back to the channel. We're ripping another draft, third straight draft night for your boy. Ripped a DraftKings draft on Tuesday with Trey. Last night we had the staff draft, and tonight we're back with our boy, Hilo, Mark Garcia, and Joe Dolan. Fun guy.
Hey guys, I drafted last night, but I didn't appear on stream, but let's appear on stream now. Let's get a puppy going, man. What's up, guys?
Oh, let's go. I'm shocked it hasn't filled. It's like 40, maybe 35% right now. So get in, get your puppies, use code FANTASYPTS. Get yourself a deposit match up to $250 and a $5 standard subscription. We're going to run a puppy too here. These things are going to snap fill. I dropped the link in Discord. So if you're hanging out in Discord and want to draft with us tonight, we got 5 people, or hanging out on YouTube. Welcome. We're waiting on 5 people. We want to draft with us. Hop in. $5 puppy too.
Right quick.
Mark, how's your week going, man? You having a good one?
Yeah, it's good, dude. Pretty busy this week. I was writing a piece for Fantasy Points for Best Ball Week, and it turned into an absolute.
Yeah, I already have to outsource it to get the Cliffs Notes written.
It's a bit lengthy. So
I have to sell this.
What's the word count? I need a word count here.
It's at like 11 and a half, I think, right now.
Let's
and
go,
it's going to probably end around 15. So I got to finish that tonight after we get off of this. So.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to it, man. We had just an incredible amount of content come out. I had a 12,000 word draft guide. Ryan and Scott just dropped a bunch of targets, articles, and then we got Mark's article coming out here soon, looking like a Bible. So, guys, we're at the horn here. We're picking at 12.
Least favorite spot to pick at.
I think now my least favorite spot is 10, 9 or 10. But yeah, second least favorite
this will
is the spot.
Be a good exercise because
let's get weird.
It's not so much what you get at. I mean, it is kind of what you get at the turn, but it's more the 3-4 turn that I don't like about drafting at the turn here. So that I actually think third round reversal does help this year, more like for your horn teams. So yeah, it's gonna be this should be pretty interesting. But have you guys been surprised at all by I've actually gotten a decent amount of CMC 1-2. It happened last night because Thomas went nuts and took Jamar Chase first overall.
Yeah,
but
it happens more on DK.
So yeah, more on
it
DK.
Happens more on DK.
PPR.
Yeah, with the PPR, and it's even though those rooms aren't as receiver heavy in spots, I think it makes a little more sense over there with the bonuses. Mark, I want to ask you real quick because you did something interesting in our staff draft last night.
Yeah,
you took Waddle and Ayuk, wasn't it, at the turn?
I think so. I can't remember.
I think it was Waddle and Ayuk. I really like that to get a little different. In these puppies, are you doing anything different at the turn? Because the chalk is Gibbs, London, or Gibbs, Taylor. You double tap running backs. I really like getting weird in this spot, especially if it's one of these receivers that falls like Wilson and Brown, just to kind of get some weird combos. But anything you've been doing at the spot?
I've been getting weird since these contests opened at the turn because we'll talk about it after this pick. We'll make this pick and then I'll ramble for a minute.
All right. Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts because I've just Caitlin Olsen dry heaving whenever I get the turn.
It is gross, and I'm with you, Joe. I think the 3-4 is the tricky point. I think you can get some interesting combinations here to get weird, especially in these time box tournaments. So we'll see, Joe. Let's see if Wilson falls through. He does not. So this is your typical setup. Who's your lean here, Joe?
My lean would be I have been taking Gibbs. Here I'm taking MH Jr. Here. But how much JT do we have already? You know what? Let's go Harrison in London.
All right.
Oh, curveball.
I like it.
Ooh, look at those quick hands, man. Quick hands.
Well done.
I got a little bit of experience. Yeah, I like that call. This is the one to kind of get a little weird. You open yourself up to Kyler and cousin stacks.
I have so much Kyler, and it's more so like I've mentioned. I mentioned this off air. Just by the luck of the draw, I've had way more front half first round picks in these tournaments, but I have so much Kyler McBride right now. Like not so much MH Jr., but Kyler McBride stacks. Anyway, there's a reason I said let's go receiver. There was a back who I particularly like who might be available at the 3-4 turn. But Hilo, I want to know what your thought here was getting weird. And I don't know if you consider Harrison London weird enough for you, but I'd like to hear your thought.
It's all like rooted in the theoretical framework of like ADP and where it's going to move, right? So like we have to like break up where players are being drafted per ADP in what that gives us for a weekly range of outcomes. And by doing so and viewing it in a different light, I think a lot of best ball drafters right now are looking at season-long projections or looking at median or are worried about where's this player going to finish in a positional rank. Whereas like these contests are, especially on Underdog where they're playoff style contests, we need to be weighting single week range of outcomes a lot heavier than I think the field is. So by doing that, we break up like per ADP. And the assumption is that like top 3 rounds, like every player in the top 3 rounds has an overall 1, like at their position within their single week range of outcomes, right? So that should theoretically mean that any pairings of any of those guys within the first 3 rounds, as far as single week range of outcomes goes, is equivalent or roughly equivalent. I mean, it's not a perfect science, but this is all theory, right? And if that's the case, there are going to be so many paths in the game tree, which is like each round draft pick that you make is a node, a decision point in the game tree. And then all the other decisions that you can make from there branch out from there. So like this game tree is borderline infinite. And if people are so constrained to ADP, and yes, ADP is going to move, but it's not going to move a ton in the first 3 rounds. There's going to be very, very limited areas of the game tree that the field is touching. And that's more important for these like massive contests. It is important for like, I call them snapshot contests like this, the puppy or like other contests that Underdog will release, because like you're even more constrained to a very finite amount of time and a snapshot in ADP where like all these players are all these people are going to be drafting teams with like the same combinations of the first 3 rounds. Right. So yeah, that's just a way to say like, I can access different areas of the game tree because we don't know what path on the game tree is going to be optimal at this point where we're sitting right now. So if we like just say, hey, I can access different areas of the game tree by just getting a little different in the first 3 rounds, I'm all about it. So like, yeah, I kind of like threw that out there in our draft last night, like took Ayuk and Waddle. It's like, I don't know. I'm not saying that they're going to outperform like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Drake London. It's like, it doesn't matter really. Like if you're building solid teams, solid roster construction, sticking to optimal theory, like you have this room to deviate, and that's just one way to do it.
That's a really fun way to put it. I will say this though, the 2-hole here, just for a common start for me, that 2-hole here, it's been something I've done probably multiple times just because Saquon has been one of my most common second round picks. But I love what you said. I don't think I have a single team right now that has Harrison and London on it. And
I've done this a few times. Mark, my favorite way to get weird right now is a little Olave and Adams, little game stack, week 17. We don't these second round receivers, man. Like it's one long tier. Like we're overly confident that like you said, we're overly confident in Adams and hit just like a season long projection, sure. But in general, this second round tier from all the way from London through to now Diggs and Neighbors, I view it as a humongous long tier where all these guys could outperform all the way to Cup, really.
Yeah, that's where I have it.
All these guys could outperform each other, and it's so tight. And even if you look at projections, I think most good projections are going to have these guys within season long 20 to 30 total points of each other. It's not really a huge difference. All right, Joe, who's your back? We're back.
It's Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, we got Henry and Pacheco here.
I like both, quite frankly. What do you guys think in terms of Hilo? What do you think here in terms of? I do have Henry higher than Pacheco, but Pacheco was the guy I was thinking of because I think he's a legitimate bell cow this year.
You won't take both.
We'll take both.
Oh shit.
We'll take both. Why
Let's
not?
take both.
Let's take both.
Take both
I mean, why not?
I like them both a lot. That actually is a pretty damn good outcome from my opinion, because
it's not bad.
Scott brought it up, or Ryan brought it up in their Underdog article, how like Pacheco's target share in games without McKinnon last year would have been like 5th best among all running backs.
It's very nice.
And I think we think of him as fantasy players as just early down, LeGarrette Blount style running back, right? Like not that he's as big as LeGarrette Blount, but like that 0 as a receiver type running back. And look, I understand that they're trying to throw the ball deeper this year. That's why they drafted Worthy. That's why they went out and signed Hollywood Brown. But I mean, they didn't do anything in the backfield. CEH is still there, man. He's the top backup, and I know he's been a popular best ball bro pick in the 18th round. And I understand why, but man, Pacheco, I actually think less than LeGarrette Blount. I think people view him kind of like they view Henry mentally. Like just, hey, he's got to get his touchdowns and all that, but he was better than that at the end of last year.
Yeah, and I mean the Kansas City offense underperformed their expectations so heavily last year. So expecting that to regress to the mean now, and I get it, like Bieniemy's no longer in town, but this is Andy Reid's offense, right? Matt Nagy has a hand in it, but if we expect Patrick Mahomes' touchdown rate to regress to career mean, if we expect their points per game to regress to career mean, now you're getting a running back who's potentially a 70-75% back on an offense that is, again, like projected to be one of the top 5 offenses. It's like, like Joe Mixon is in the same conversation. It's like people are scared to draft Joe Mixon right now, but it's like we're so giddy about, I mean, they have 5 players, quarterback included, that are going in the top 5 rounds right now. That's insane.
Yeah. Mark, I know you're big on Chiefs, but you look at the look ahead lines. I put this in my article, but like weeks 1 through 17, by the implied scores, it's Niners, Lions, and the Chiefs. If you look at the top 12 teams, they're implied to score, by far, have the biggest year-over-year improvement in points per game until you get to the Jets, and that's only because of Aaron Rodgers, until you get to the Falcons, and that's only because of Kirk Cousins. And it's like, the markets are telling us to be bullish on Chiefs. I like your really strong stance on Chiefs right now. I'm waiting to get all of my Mahomes until like August, September, because like you've been mentioning, right now it's the time to get these running backs in these like 7th, 8th, 9th round pockets. I view some of the quarterbacks as guys that can move late too, especially if we get some positive spin on the rookies like Daniels and Williams. And I'm not drafting like those guys that heavily. I just don't know if Mahomes' ADP is going to move that much. I just know these backs is going to move a ton, and I'm going to go ham on Mahomes in like the 40s and 50s, pretty much starting now. I think now is the time to go all in on Chiefs. As we get Mahomes at 51, this is an interesting team here.
You can get pretty
Ayuk,
cheap.
Flowers.
Yeah, it is.
That's an interesting team.
Flowers, that's as early as I've seen Zay go.
Yeah, he's moving.
Not a fan.
I'm not a fan at all, but that's an interesting little team that Three Holes got going. Go ahead, Mark.
My top 3 exposures at quarterback are Will Levis, Dak Prescott, and Patrick Mahomes right now, between 26-28%. So I've been kind of hammering those guys this entire offseason.
I'm at 25% Levis on DK and on Underdog. He's my top guy. I kind of wish
Underdog would include complete. Do they include only completed teams?
Yes, if you have slow drafts going, it doesn't have those.
It won't.
So my top quarterback is. Funnily enough, my top quarterback right now is Kyler. Only on completed teams, but I've been drafting. I've been getting a lot of Hollywood Brown. I don't know, Hilo. Maybe like I know you have to think differently for these tournaments, but I just far prefer Hollywood to Xavier Worthy at cost.
Oh, dude, I don't think I've taken a single Worthy.
Yeah,
and I have heaps of
you have all the Chiefs. You have all the
except
Chiefs.
Worthy.
Joe, what are your thoughts here, man? We got some decent backs that fell to us. We got to take a receiver here. Godwin is at the top.
You like Godwin the best.
Yeah.
I'll default to you at the receiver because you take the receiver you want here.
We got time
I think you got a double tap receiver.
Yeah,
here
I agree,
because we did running back last time. That's my
nuke.
picks. Yeah.
What about Pitts? We already have London.
Don't hate it.
I'm more with Mark, but you're the man. I don't mind it.
Just
because we have 2 RBs already, I would side with the wide receiver just because it's
all right. Take the receiver.
Right.
But I was just throwing Pitts
we'll
out
nuke
there just as a, we already have London. It's very clear that Kirky's going to be a target on this team.
It's just one of those things.
Or could be a target on this team.
Like Mark was saying, we've just got 2 potential hammers. I mean, seriously, if Henry is still Henry, we've got 12 touchdowns hopefully there, and then Pacheco is an ascending.
We can
player
wait
still,
to get like some of the murky running backs, right? The Chase Browns of the world.
Ideally with this like setup, because we took the 2 backs, I'm probably not touching running back until like the 13th round.
Yeah, honestly, on this type of team, I would stop at 5 at most, and I'm good with 4, especially in puppy, man. And especially since we got Henry, 6-7 spots past ADP.
That's a big point too. That I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, look at my closing line value versus ADP." Well, closing line value versus ADP, based on its importance, is an inverse logarithmic scale. In that, it is so much more like 5 picks past ADP in the top 3 rounds is like roughly equivalent in EV to like a round and a half when you start getting to later rounds. So it's like that's actually a fairly big boost to EV right there.
And
of course, like a great article, Mark. That's a great article,
man. I'm so far behind.
He's going to be speaking in tongues by the time he's done tonight. No, but also closing line value on ADP just matters so far less in a puppy than it does in best ball.
Yes. Yeah.
Just because
this contest is going to fill on Saturday. Yeah, it's going to fill on Saturday.
Yeah, it's so I don't really look at it that way either. Especially with this because so you're thinking like 12th, 13th round. I was thinking slightly earlier than that, like the Chase Browns of the world, those guys who, but let me tell you who my most exposed running backs are. I can tell you right off the top of my head, I know who my most drafted running back is right now. It's Tyrone Tracy, which is absolutely one of those like teens round type of running backs. By the way, Kamara, his ADP is slipping a little bit because of the contract situation. I did talk to Ross Jackson from the Locked On Saints podcast today. That'll be up on Franchise Focus within a week or so. He thinks it's going to be typical Saints. They're going to add some guaranteed monies and some dummy years to his contract and make him happy, make him whole through 2025. He think that's what's going to happen to them.
Yeah. Yeah, the big question I have with Kamara, obviously, is the efficiency is declining. We're going back and forth in Discord about this, but like, just how much touchdown equity do we think he has with Taysom there? Declining player. I'm pretty much out on Kamara. I think if you start sliding,
I haven't taken him,
especially in 0.5, man.
I've taken Kendre a little bit, like in because he's in like the wide receiver 40 some range. I wasn't really a Kendre guy, but then I'm like, you open up the possibilities and you're like, oh, well, all of a sudden you really like what
Kendrick's like got the talent. He was always going to be more of a project though, and then he got hurt.
Got hurt. Yeah,
I was hammering Kendre pretty early, and then his ADP kind of converged with like Marshawn Lloyd, and it's like I can't take Kendre over Marshawn Lloyd.
I have a lot of
Mark.
Lloyd.
You took Marshawn like well ahead of ADP last night. I wanted him back on the turn, and you were way ahead on that.
Dude, that's I drafted at the effectively the turn last night, and it's like you have to make things. You cannot wait and let things fall to you like you can in the middle. Like if you're drafting 6th or 7th, at the ends. Just make things happen. Make it like there's no problem with reaching 6 spots in ADP when we're in the double-digit rounds. Like I just talked about, like ADP closing value is like inversely proportionate to the draft, like ADP. So it's like I have no issues reaching half a round or a full round once you start in the double-digit rounds at the turn to just like make my roster construction make sense.
All right, I think we're nearly back with it.
Yeah, we're going to take Kyler for sure.
Yeah, obviously.
The question then becomes...
I really wanted J-Mo there.
Yeah. Then the question becomes, what do you want to do at the 2nd pick? Because receivers are bone dry.
Yeah.
We got Jake Ferg, a tight end.
I have a lot of Ferguson.
About that. on this team. I like
He's
Ferguson
so-
too, but
He's so
I don't know.
boring. And
Yeah.
we don't have any Eagles or Cowboys, right? So,
what do you guys think about doing like a fully like 4 RB team? We take John Brooks here and take
I'm
one
okay
more
with it,
running
yeah.
back.
yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Like, I don't want to reach down the like. What am I gonna do? What are we gonna do? Go reach for Cortland Sutton? Like, yay!
Yeah, nah. All right,
Like,
so
no.
so we'll take like 2 more running backs at max, maybe
Yeah.
1.
So I posted a screenshot of a BBM I did last night on Twitter.
Yeah, I saw this one.
It was a
I
3
was going to
running
ask
back
you about
build.
this.
Yeah, it was a 3 running back build, and basically just lit the fantasy world on fire. Like everyone's just like burn it down. The 3 running backs that I had on that roster were Joe Mixon with a week 14 bye, Jonathan Brooks with the week 11 bye, and then Zach Moss with a week 12 bye. The theoretical reasoning behind that is it's a running back arbitrage. It is getting like if those 2 running backs that are healthy the entire season, if they stay healthy through week 11, that's what I'm trying to get to. Trying to get to week 11 because that's when the bet on Jonathan Brooks kicks in. After his bye week, this is when we can really expect him to like, if he's going to be like the guy, that's when it's probably going to happen, right? So like the thesis there is like based on that, my roster construction to that point, I had an elite quarterback. I had took Josh Allen like in the 4th round, and I had not had a tight end on my team. So all of like already I know, and I was drafting late, so I had like not a tier 1 wide receiver. So already I know like I need to bolster wide receiver a little bit. I need to bolster tight end. So I ended up taking 4 tight ends, which absolutely like threw everyone for a loop. And I ended up taking only the 3 running backs to bolster wide receiver additionally. With the thesis is like, where is Jonathan Brooks most beneficial to rosters is if you draft him in the 9th round and the rest of your position groups are absolutely stacked. Well, I knew I didn't have an elite tight end. So how do I make it like piece together an absolutely stacked tight end room? I took 4 of them. So that's kind of like the thought process of like knowing what's important, knowing how do I benefit? Like, what do I win if I'm right on Jonathan Brooks? If he's your RB4 on a roster, you're not winning a ton because that means like your wide receivers, your quarterbacks, your tight ends are all not elite. Like you're going to be sacrificing somewhere. So it's like, if Jonathan Brooks pans out, how do I benefit the most? It's by like him kicking in after his bye week. How do I get there? Let me take these running backs early that have a late bye week. So like Travis Etienne is week 12. Derrick Henry's week 14. You have Joe Mixon week 14. These are the guys that you like target to kind of arbitrage piece together that late season upside. So it's like, if those 2 guys stay healthy, they're one place for Cincinnati Bengals projected to score the 5th most points this season. One place for Houston projected to be in the top 7. So it's like, that's how we can get there and kind of like arbitrage our way to upside when it matters the most, which is in the playoffs. So yeah, I don't know. That's a little quick like rundown on the theory behind it, but it was like nobody could see anything beyond this is not 2-5-8-3 build. It's like, okay.
I love getting different. If I were you, I would have taken a 4th running back just because I mean you have so much downside with just 3. Like you could be absolutely, and I hope you're absolutely right about Jonathan Brooks. He's my most drafted running back right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, if he does start slow, I mean, you could have a real chance to get out of the gates like super, super slow. I did love the 4 tight ends though, especially because you can like zombify it, basically zombie a tight end 1 out of it. Especially makes sense on DK or drafters where you get that extra 2 rounds.
Oh yeah.
But you know, you can do it this year too. I mean, it's small sample size, but the advance rate metrics are actually not bad on 4 tight end teams, especially in your scenario where you do what you did.
Yeah.
Speaking of tight end, we got one that fell into our lap here in Njoku.
Yeah, I like it. I like David Njoku. I mean, just in a vacuum.
Receiver, I think.
Yeah. How do you feel about Shakir?
On this team, I'm not crazy about it. I was thinking like Cooks for ceiling or Palmer. What do you think, Mark? We're going Njoku on the front. We're not taking it back.
Let's do that. Like, it's probably, no running back. We're good there right now.
Cooks or Shakir for me personally. I haven't clicked a lot of Joshua Palmer. and that's just like single week range of outcomes discussion. But
we don't have an Eagle on this team, right? We don't
Like
have, and we don't. The Bills play the Jets. We don't have a Jet either.
Yeah,
I just like
we're drawing dead on week 17 here.
I
yeah,
actually
you can
think
still backstack week 16 with either of them though.
yeah.
All right, we'll take
I like
Shakir.
Shakir. I like Shakir.
I think you can make the same Shakir argument, having a relatively tight range of outcomes. But talk to me about Palmer, because I kind of think there's a chance he's their number one wide receiver this season. I do like Ladd McConkey. I am drafting him, but
yeah,
I mean, like Palmer a little better.
It comes down to the single week range of outcomes discussion. I've had this discussion also talking about Ladd McConkey. And like we have a fairly robust sample size of the new coaching regime in Los Angeles. Like we know kind of who Harbaugh is from his time in San Francisco, and we kind of know like what to expect from the offensive coordinator. So like his name escapes me right now. I'm drawing a blank. I've been writing for 12 hours straight. But like we kind of know what to expect, right? In that like discussion, it's this realization of like this might not be a volume heavy pass offense. And what does that mean? Like Ladd McConkey probably will lead the team in targets. Like Joshua Palmer probably will have an ADOT between 10 and 12. Like he probably will be that downfield guy because Quinn Johnson is going to be operating over the middle of the field. We kind of have that assumption. They want to get him the ball in his hands in space. I mean, the offensive coordinator has mentioned as much this season. He said like, well, that guy wasn't used very well last year. It's like totally shitting on the previous regime, but it's like, we kind of know a little bit what to expect. We don't know for certain. We can't sit here and pretend that we know what a coach is going to do in June. But if we kind of take what we've seen in history between these two coaches, we can kind of assume that like they're going to be capped at 33, 34 pass attempts, like in a back and forth type game. So where does that leave the weekly target distribution? Is Ladd going to see 12 targets when they're throwing 33 times? I don't know, but like, that's probably not like that's probably his 95% weekly outcome as opposed to some of these other guys we're talking in this range who have, that would be like their 75, 80% outcome. Like a DeAndre Hopkins has a much better chance of seeing like a 12 target game, multi-touchdown game. So it kind of comes down to that for me. Whereas like Josh Palmer might end the season around where he's being drafted from like a median standpoint, but those spike weeks are probably going to be few and far between because what are they going to do when they get in the red zone? It's probably going to be a high rush rate. They're probably going to keep the ball on the ground. What has kind of stuck out to me most recently is like going through the what ifs of like, hey, what if they start utilizing Herbert as we used to see them like Lamar Jackson used, or like Josh Allen was not like this mobile guy coming into the league, but they kind of turned him into that. So like that's kind of piquing my interest recently. My problem is like I don't know who to pair him with, so I'm kind of just left with these like weird. Like I'm targeting their backfield because there's so much ambiguity there that it's more than priced in. It's just kind of this weird situation. That's kind of like the skinny of why I'm not targeting those pass catchers though.
The other side, I know you wrote an article about this. Yeah. I just want to pivot a little bit because Graham said we're kind of drawing dead week 17 here.
Yeah.
How much do you fret if you're doing one of these large field tournaments and you don't really have a powerful week 17, at least a mini week 17 stack?
I think there's a common misconception about why we stack. I'll let this pick go and then kind of get into like it in DFS terms because obviously this technique comes from DFS. But we'll talk about it here shortly. Let's make these picks.
All right, Joe, what are you thinking here? Got it sorted by ADP.
Yeah, Downs is interesting. We already have
I love Leggett on this team. I love Leggett.
Well, we have Jonathan Brooks, so might as well get a second receiver. Yeah, you know what? I like Leggett, and I was thinking of Gabe as well.
Right,
because Gabe does something that they didn't have last year, right? With somebody who can actually play X, even though he's not like great, like, but he can kind of usurp that role, and so I kind of like Gabe here. The Jaguars have the Titans, so we actually have DeAndre Hopkins. So
yeah, I like it for this
On
team too. Little extra ceiling piece. We got two guys in Shakir and Godwin that are pretty
and
decent floors.
Carolina plays Tampa, so we have some week 17 correlation there.
We'll
So
play. We have some back end stack too. Kyler's got the
Yeah.
week 11 bye, so we can't get Godwin, Mayfield, or Bryce. But
unless we go 3 quarterback, but I don't like to do that on a Kyler team.
Yeah. Ideally not. All right, Mark, you were gonna say what's your common misconception about stacking here?
Yeah, so the reason that we stack is to reduce variance. I mean, if you look at the optimal roster in DFS and the Millie Maker, which, you know, between 240 to 480,000 entries each week, the optimal roster is most commonly going to be just this shotgun of random people. We stack to reduce the variance associated with that, knowing that we don't need optimal to win these contests because we're not playing against the computer. We're not trying to win high score. We're trying to beat all the other human beings, right? That are inherently flawed, that make mistakes, that all this yada, 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 mumbo jumbo nonsense. So the reason that we stack is to reduce variance. In a like upside combined ceiling sense, yes, you capture bulk scoring. You're able to get double dip on the touchdowns that are scored. We know that touchdowns are the most variant act in the game of football. So you're able to double dip on the points of a highly variant act. But if we're like really looking at this, it's based on like the current state of the NFL. There are very few teams where it's like, if this wide receiver scores 2 touchdowns, then it is likely coming from like 5 total touchdowns from the quarterback. Oftentimes you see, because this is such an alpha dominated league, if a wide receiver is catching 2 touchdowns, the offense is scoring 3 total. So it's like, what does that buy you if we're looking for like combined maximum upside? I'm not saying like we don't stack correlate, because we want to manage variance. We want to make sure that if we're right in 8 of the 9 places on our roster, we're not cratered because we don't have that 9th piece, right? So we have to be worried about floor. We have to be worried about overall range of outcomes. And we have to be worried about variance and how it affects and how we manage it in a weekly sense. So I'm not being bent out of shape if like it doesn't happen. I'm not going to like force it at the expense of sound roster construction, because the second highest contributor to expected value in these contests is advancement rate. So we have to like advance out of our draft. Yes, like week 17 is mega important because that's the greatest contributor to expected value, but like advancement rate's also important. And what is the biggest contributor to EV and advancement rate? It's roster construction. So I'm not going to go and like blow that up. And it's funny we're talking about this after I just like blew that up in my recent example, the 3 running back.
No,
it's like
I was
fitting,
dude. You read my mind. I was just about to make fun of you for that until you said that comment. No, I always say roster construction just provides the framework. Everything else is what you're trying to do to seek upside. And like you said, you know, stacking reduces variance. Here, actually, we're back on the clock.
Stafford gives us week 17.
Yeah, we don't need. I like Levis a lot for this team to give us nuke.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
Hawks starting to fall. I don't.
A lot of quarterbacks right there. Oh, you have them sorted by rank. Okay.
Yeah,
I was like, what is happening right here, dude? We're gonna
take Pearsall here.
What is your thoughts on Pearsall? Like, with Juwan resigning, with all the uncertainty, like, what are we doing with him?
The only reason I took him here is because he's massively past ADP. Joe, what do you think on this next spot?
Do you like putting Thielen with Leggett?
I don't hate it. I mean, for this team, we need receivers.
Yeah,
I feel strongly about that.
Let's put Thielen with Leggett, and maybe we get a half a season out of each one there.
All right. Yeah, we're gonna do this is gonna definitely be a 4 running back team. I have not drafted hardly any Pearsall.
Yeah,
this is just to get unique here. He's 17 spots past ADP.
Yeah,
I think the only way he really even pays off this pick at 156, I've got him in 170-ish, maybe 165, is if they trade somebody or just Debo gets hurt.
Then,
gets hurt. Yeah.
I mean,
even then, it's like they just re-signed Juwan to like an actual like you're gonna play contract.
Yeah.
It's a mess, man.
I think this is their window. They know it's their window. They don't want anything to get away from that. And if, Debo does get hurt, they, really value depth at receiver, obviously.
Yeah.
And, Juwan's a good blocker. We don't have like any alpha elite wide receivers, but this is like for 9 receiver depth, even with Pearsall, who we don't absolutely love. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, there went Levis.
Set there.
We got goosed on Levis.
This is the exact same setup of when I did my 3.
Does that guy have Ridley? Yeah, at least he has Ridley.
He does. That's fine.
It's like the exact same setup of when I did my 3 RB build, because like, yeah, you took wide receiver your first 2 picks, but none of them are tier 1. So it's like, yeah. Like,
and dude, they might be tier 3. Like, let's be honest. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I love Marvin Harrison long term. I've always loved Drake London, but like, I'm also fully aware that like, dude, Jalen Waddle could smash both of them this year. Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, IU could smash, but I mean, all these dudes, like we were just talking about when we opened the show, it's just
what if Cooper Kupp isn't washed the way everybody's treating him?
That's Mark's biggest.
That is my biggest stand.
That's literally Mark's biggest take this year.
Yeah, so that's why I said like these second round receivers is like the Eagles have moments where like AJ Brown will take a little bit of a step back and Devontae Smith will produce like an alpha. Devontae Smith's a 3rd round receiver who, I mean, let's be honest, in his career so far has produced way more than Drake London has. Like,
yeah,
we have reasons for that for London, but still.
I drew a comparison between Brandon Cooks and Devonta Smith, and it, again, blew the lid off the roof. Like, people could not compute. But if you look at like their weekly range of outcomes, it's very similar, which is like Cooks is in the 11th round and Devonta Smith's at the 2-3 turn.
Yeah, and so last year I had very little Cooks. Cooks, I'm more on your wavelength this year, Mark. Cooks is going to be one of my more drafted receivers, dude, because they lost Michael Gallup.
They might lead the NFL.
Jalen Tolbert might suck. Like,
yeah, I'm that.
Who else are they going to go the ball to?
I've done the best ball donkey thing. I've drafted plenty of Jalen Tolbert because again, it's the 17th round, and what if he doesn't?
He is a perfectly fine 18th round pick right now. Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Especially on Eagles teams. I like that a lot. Get some.
The thing about the Eagles Cowboys stacks, that's going to be obviously the most common. One of the most common week 17 stacks.
Yeah, but the primaries only, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like the guys in the first 4 rounds.
Right,
like,
because all those guys are going early.
Yeah, they will be paired a lot.
I mean, it is very I don't want to say easy, but it is incredibly possible to go CD, Saquon, Devontae, Hurts, or CD, like CD, Saquon, Devontae, and then you get Dak Prescott a little bit later. If you go CD, Saquon, where your bread's getting buttered on that.
All right, so we're taking Watson.
Yeah, like
20 spots past ADP. We'll get him a QB2.
I hate Deshaun Watson, but like,
what do you guys think about Bucky Irving as our last running back?
I'm okay.
Dead silence.
Yeah,
I mean, just
had to mute my mic because I got my kids have friends over and they're being so loud.
Well, they like Bucky Irving a ton. That must be what it is. There you go.
Yeah, Bucky Irving's fine.
I prefer. I'm not gonna talk you out of it in the next 24 seconds, but as far as like handcuffs go, I want them to be on like legitimate offenses where it's like if the things happen that we need to happen, like the lead back gets injured, then they have some like contingent upside. So it's like, is it Will Shipley? I don't know. Is it CH? I don't know. But like, I tend to side with guys like that when I'm throwing those late darts.
Yeah.
Where it's like a guy like Bucky Irving, for example, you need White to get hurt, and then you need the offense to not like perform worse at the running back position because Dave Canales left. So you got to get like multiple things right in order for that to like pan out. Whereas like a guy like, I don't know if it's even going to be Will Shipley, but I'll just use him as an example. Like if Saquon goes down in Philly and it's like Will Shipley gets that steam or like shows out in camp, he's probably going to move up into the 12th round or something. So I don't know. CH, he's not a good player. He's not good at football. He's not good for what the Chiefs need him to be good at, obviously, because they brought in a undrafted or a 6th round. What a Pacheco, a 6th rounder.
He was a 7th rounder.
7th rounder. Yeah, so
Yeah.
they like he usurps a first rounder. So like they know he's not right for their team, but it's like you kind of only need
They
an
actively
injury.
re-signed him though.
Yeah, you kind of only need an injury. It's like if Pacheco goes down, like CH is gonna play 65% of the snaps and probably be spelled by like Deneric Prince or something.
Would you rather do that than like one of the other running backs who was on the board was Khalil Herbert?
Khalil Herbert, yeah.
Who? What if he ends up in Dallas? Like
that's a lot. That's a position where it's like I'll wait for that news.
Okay, yeah,
and I'll chase it up. It's okay. Like, but like because that discussion about like inverse log about ADP close line values, like if a guy moves, like last year, the example I was using was Jerick McKinnon. Like he started the draft season undrafted because he wasn't signed on the Chiefs. So I was targeting him in the 18th round. It was like he's probably going to get re-signed by the Chiefs. That's important. So yeah, but I wasn't. He went up to like the 12th round, and it's like you guys are losing sight of what's important here. Like he's not ever going to be like a 70% back in Kansas City. Like, does he have contingent value? Maybe, but he's most important. Like a multi-touchdown game, and he gets like 40 yards. Like that's kind of his ceiling and his weekly range of outcomes. We're like this year, so that's a little different. Where it's like if somebody like that moves from the 17th, 18th round until the 15th, you're not losing a ton of value. So I'm fine waiting for something like that to happen or transpire. Whereas like a Tyler Algier, if Bijan like goes out and blows a knee, and then God forbid in the next 2 months, Tyler Algier is going to move up to the 5th round.
Yeah.
So like from the 13th round
not
to
earlier than that
5th round, that's massive. So those are the guys I'm kind of targeting now. To answer that question in a really roundabout way.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to make a player comparison just because you brought it up. Do you know who my comparison for Will Shipley? I was a Clemson season ticket holder this year. My wife's a professor at Clemson. Do you know who my player comparison for Will Shipley is?
No.
Kenny Gainwell.
They replace it 1 for 1.
Yeah, like literally, I said, you know, everybody compares him to Christian McCaffrey because white. He is not Christian McCaffrey. It's not even close. But he's got good hands and he's actually kind of hard charging, and so is Kenny Gainwell. The problem is he's just small.
Yeah.
So Shipley's a little bigger than Gainwell, but like that was literally the Eagles have a type, man. They like these guys are these
scat man, scrappy.
Yeah. And I mean the fact of the matter, like they like Kenny Gainwell too much. Like, you know, I think you might remember last year, maybe the very first sign that the Eagles coaching was a little askew was the fact that they were giving Kenny Gainwell 20 touches in week 1 and DeAndre Swift gets 7 snaps. Like they didn't evaluate their team very well at that point.
Yeah.
So Graham, I'm guessing we're going tight end here.
Yeah, we kind of got a little goosed on Chiggy. I would have liked him a lot here.
Colby Parkinson there.
Yeah, Juwan Parkinson.
It looked my guy today told me Juwan he might be ready for training camp.
Oh, okay.
So like,
I think that's a buying opportunity for sure.
This might be an opportunity where you can get somebody who, in theory, could be like their number 3 passing target, and people are scared because of this injury, and justifiably so. But now he's a 17th and 18th round pick as opposed to an 11th round pick.
Yeah, late buy too, so I don't really care too much if he starts on PUP. Because if you're taking Juwan, you're taking 3 tight ends most of the time.
Did I talk you into Colby Parkinson? I know you said it's Brawley's boy, but I'm pretty sure I talked Brawley into him too.
Yeah. It was one of you guys because Parkinson. Maybe you made the note that he got the same amount of money as Hunter Henry, and Tyler Higbee might be dust.
Tyler Higbee,
I think he is.
Might be over at this
I think he is. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, he might be total dust. The very next pick was CEH, 8th round pick,
which we weren't going to take on this team anyway. Probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
actually,
how do you feel about quote unquote handcuffing, Mark, when it's not necessarily a handcuff, when it's like Zach Moss, Chase Brown, guys who might have independent?
I prefer it. I prefer it over because again, that discussion of like, what do you win if you're right? In a split backfield, they could have that ping pong effect where one's going off 1 week, the other's going off the other week. And then you still have the benefit of like one of them getting hurt. Whereas we'll compare like an example that we already used, like Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. it's probably not going to look that way again this year.
Yeah.
Like with the coaching staff that came in, it's
And
Bijan is the guy.
they're saying it's not, by the way.
Yeah, Bijan is the guy, and like Aljair is there as like a capable backup. He's not even going to be a 1B, right? We don't expect that. So I prefer targeting the backup of the guy that is not going to be heavily involved, because if the lead back goes, now that could roll over to the backup. And now you're looking at, instead of a 45% snap rate guy, you're looking at a 65, 70% snap rate guy. So I prefer that, actually.
Yeah, I can tell you I've done it with Brown and Moss. I've only done this once. I've actually done it with Warren and Najee. Like some of those split backfields, it kind of sounds like, but I actually kind of like them both at ADP. Like, Green Bay's a little bit less so, because I don't like Jacobs as much. I'm not militantly anti-Jacobs. It's just that I like Marshawn Lloyd so much better at his cost. But like, people ask, like, the Steelers thing with, I know everybody's gaga for Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren went ahead of Najee in this draft. And I don't hate Jaylen Warren at all. But if somebody's going to if somebody's going to say, all right, everybody's gaga for Jaylen Warren and Najee's going to fall, I'll be drafting a lot of Najee. But that's just me saying, like, I do like these split backfields, because as you mentioned, some of these teams, 4 running back builds are so fragile, and teams are in best ball are going to have 4 running back builds, where a lot of teams are just going to be drawing dead at running back by the time the season ends. And even if you have 2 healthy guys in a split backfield, that might be enough to get them both in your lineup.
Yeah, I mean, look at historical trends over the last 5 years. It's like, we have to know coming into the season that 30% of the running backs are going to get hurt. And like, it's just going to happen. I mean, recently we've seen that at quarterback too. It's like 30% of the quarterbacks just hurt. Okay. So how do we like optimize? Well, we could play the variance game and say like, well, what if these 2 stay healthy? In my 3 running back example, that's the thesis. It's like, what if those guys stay healthy? How do I optimize for this? But realize that's extreme variance. So like, could we need that extreme variance to win these contests? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
We don't know, but it's okay to mix that into your portfolio. Like, that was the first 3 running back build I've done in 260 drafts. So it's going to be okay.
It's
guys.
one. Yeah.
It's going to be okay. But that's like, that team is not drawing dead. It has a path to being like a contender team once we get to the playoffs. Like, I got to advance. That's going to take some help. That's going to take some variance dodging. That's going to take some injury dodging, but like, it's got a chance. So like, I don't know, like it's okay to get a little bit weird. But you can't be doing that. You can't be doing that across your entire portfolio. From a theoretical sense, like any move, because we know what theoretical optimal roster construction is, right? In an 18-round draft, it's 2-5-8-3 or 3-5-8-2. Those are the highest EV roster constructions that we have. And it's been mathematically proven. Like, Michael Leone's done a lot of work on it. Justin Herzig's done a lot of work on it. So we kind of know what our guidelines are. It's okay to like stray from that if you have a reason, but you have to realize any deviation from that, like, fundamentally is going to lower your EV, because that is theoretical optimal. But if you are turning that deviation into an exploitation against field tendencies, you have the opportunity to make up the EV and then some that you lost from the deviation itself. And this is like really theoretical, and a lot of like, well, this is game theory in a nutshell. It's like, have to consider field tendencies. And if the field is not doing these things that have been proven to like boost EV, like pairing a quarterback with your tight end, like, this has been proven that is not an optimal way. It's not going to hit every week, but the hit rate of that is about 22.2%. And I can guarantee you the field is not pairing their quarterback with the tight end at a 22.2% frequency. So that is a boost to expected value that offsets the loss in EV from the deviation itself. So we can do things like that. We don't have to draft every roster 2-5-8-3, 3-5-8-2, but we have to, like, it has to be doing something for us. If you're drafting a 3 running back build with Jonathan Brooks, and one of the other running backs has a week 5, week 6 bye, you're drawing dead. You're not going to win. You're not going to advance, and the roster is dead. But like, there are some things we can do.
Yeah, the whole point of 4 running back builds is like, one, go for depth at receiver, you're probably going to end up taking 9. And 2, and this team kind of shook out that way where we got 3 late round tight ends, but that's why I love the 4th tight end that you took, because you're not killing your advance rate with a 4th tight end. In fact, you're probably helping it with that team because touchdowns are so random. And didn't you had 2 of your quarterbacks paired with your tight end, right?
Let me check.
I think it was both. Because
they were correlated. I know that week 17, they were all correlated.
No, because one of your main takes this year has been, stack your quarterback with tight end. And it kind of goes back to my thesis that, tight ends just live and die by touchdowns. We're really just chasing touchdowns in week 17 when it comes down to it. There's just very rarely, instances where consistently one tight end is just scoring touchdowns week in and week out. Kelsey and Kittle and Andrews are just like, the unicorns. They're the exception to the rule. If you don't get those guys, just go for volume.
So I did a study on that last offseason, comparing how much or how correlated is a player at all 4 major positions between touchdowns and fantasy production. What I found kind of shocked me. Tight end was actually 3rd in correlation between fantasy production and touchdowns. It was quarterback, then running back, then tight end, then wide receiver. And it starts to make sense because there aren't that many tight ends that have massive red zone roles. There also aren't that many tight ends that are consistently scoring touchdowns. So we're going to see large stretches where it's 80%, 90% of their value is coming from their yardage and their catches. So what I will say is it's different for the elites versus the non-elites. Touchdowns are much more correlated to fantasy production for the non-elite tight ends. Obviously, they're not catching 8 passes a game, right? You're not getting even Mark Andrews, his touchdown rate is immensely high for his reception rate. His touchdown rate is immensely high. So, but that's a low volume offense. But all of that to say is it depends. Touchdowns are immensely important to the late round tight ends, and that roster had 4 of them on it. So it's I am touchdown hunting then, but it's different for a guy like Travis Kelce, who's caught 92 balls or more in 6 consecutive years. His correlation between touchdowns and fantasy production is going to be much lower than a guy like Hunter Henry, who has to score in order to give you usable week.
Exactly. Yeah. And that just flips it on its head when you take, like we were talking about, you miss out on the unicorn, take the 3 late and play it, basically flip the EV on its head. Like you were saying. All right, Joe, thank you so much. I know it's been a long day. We've been meeting.
Dude, I was learning, man. I was in church here. So I got a negative correlation and all that stuff. I got to go look at that stuff up, man. No, thanks. I love it. It was awesome, man.
Yeah,
great,
dude, that was great.
Great chopping it up with you. It's been wonderful. I'm gonna go eat some dinner. I'm gonna go make a grilled cheese and then
nice,
and then watch some television. But guys, it was wonderful talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. Thanks for hanging out, Mark. As always, we'll see you guys next week with another baseball breakdown, and we'll see you all at the top of the leaderboard.
What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.